I love airports. Airports belong to no country. They only exist between the memory of where we were and the anticipation of where we are going. When you work with refugees, you spend a lot of time in airports. You spend a lot of time hanging around the in-between places, because not having a country is exactly what makes you a refugee. A few weeks ago, I went to the airport to pick up a family of 8 refugees from the Congo. They had been living the shadow of a life in a refugee camp in Tanzania for 15 years. 2 of their children were born in the camp, and now they were all flying on a plane for the first time. Having never left Central Africa before, they flew from Tanzania to Kenya to London to Chicago to Denver, all in one trip. As I drove to the airport with my coworker Zachary, I practiced some greetings in Swahili. Zachary is a Rwandan refugee himself, but now he gets to help other refugees come to the United States. I sat at the gate with Zachary as we watched the first passengers begin to exit the plane. Zachary and I were joined by some relatives of the family already living in Denver. I kept thinking about my facial expressions. I'm one of the first people they will meet in this country, and if I can't speak more than a few words of Swahili, then I can at least smile. As the last passengers began to exit the gate, we saw our Congolese family. They timidly shuffled out of the gate, carrying a good portion of all that they owned in tattered bags with UN labels. When the parents saw their cousins waiting at the gate, they dropped their bags and ran towards each other and embraced with so much love that it was almost violent. I did not need to speak Swahili to know exactly what they were saying. Their younger children just stood around baffled at all the new sights of the Denver airport. After the initial celebration, Zachary and I introduced ourselves as representatives of the refugee agency, but in reality, we were representatives of so much more. I looked down and smiled at one of the little boys. There was a slight delay, and he just stared at me, not sure what to think of this white American, and then a smile broke on his face. We picked up their bags, and we all began to walk down the terminal. When we got to the moving walkway, that same little boy and a few of his siblings froze. What is this thing? The adults stepped onto the walkway after a brief hesitation, but some of the children just froze. The little boy tentatively placed one foot on the walkway and then removed it. He did it again, unsure of what would happen when he stepped on. Then he looked up and saw his mother on the walkway, and he made his one small step and one giant leap. We awkwardly disembarked on the other end. At the escalator down to the train, they stopped again. One of the little boys simply would not get on that thing. And can you really blame him? All those moving, jagged metal corners, and we want you to get onto that thing. So we took the elevator. Moving stairs were out, but a moving room was all right. I could not help but think that I was the elevator. My job is to move them into a new life in a way that does not add to their anxiety, in a way that does not add to their trauma. As we picked up the rest of their ragged luggage at the baggage claim, the rest of everything that they owned, I realized that this was their last in-between place. They have lived in a refugee camp for 15 years, a place that only exists between the Congo and wherever refugees get to go after that, if they are very, very lucky. Like an airport, a refugee camp is not actually a place. It has no nationality, and the people living there do not call it home. As we walked into the parking lot and loaded their belongings into the van, this family of 8 refugees crossed the most important border they had ever crossed, far more important than the one they crossed when they went through customs. They crossed the border from exile into home. They crossed over from waiting to living, and anticipation melted into realization. Like the boy at the escalator, this transition would be scary, and it would come with many hardships. It would even be terrifying at times. But luckily, there are a lot of elevators here in Denver.